everybody. How's everybody doing? Good, good. All right. Well, welcome to our Cancer Prevention Masterclass. Most of you familiar faces, but if I haven't met you, I'm Dr. Brian Wickstrom. And so today is going to be a super important class. Now, just real quick, show of hands. How many either personally or have like a loved one, family member who has been diagnosed or passed away from cancer? Raise your hand. All right, so just look around the room. So at some way, shape, or form, this one illness has impacted pretty much everybody here at our class. And so obviously everybody is aware of cancer. We've all experienced it at some point with somebody else that you're familiar with or a family member or personally. So we don't really need more awareness of cancer. We don't really need to wait until it's too late to detect the cancer and try to treat or cure the cancer. What we really need to do is prevent the cancer to begin with. And so really that's what tonight's about, is because very little time, effort, money, and resources is spent on actually teaching people what causes cancer and what you can do to really improve your immune system and how to prevent it to begin with, because really prevention is better than the cure. Does that make sense? And so tonight we're going to spend a little time just kind of diving into like how much progress. It's been over 40 years since 1971, I think, is when Nixon declared the war on cancer. So 40, 50 years we spent it trying to like find a cure for this illness. So how much progress have we actually made in actually finding a cure, getting those numbers to actually come down? So we're going to talk a little bit about that, help you guys really understand what cancer is. When you understand more about what it is, where it comes from, things like that, it makes it a little bit less scary, because then you can really wrap your head around, like if you know what caused it, if you can reverse that and make some changes, then you can ultimately prevent that. Does that make sense? And so then we're going to go through what you need to do to accomplish that, lifestyle changes that you can make to really, like I said, get your immune system up, help your body be able to develop that resistance to cancer. We all actually have cancer cells in our body right now, from 100 to several thousand, 100,000. But our bodies, for the most part, until it starts to get out of control, is able to find those things, detect them, and kind of mitigate that before actually you end up getting diagnosed with it. So your body knows how to fight off cancer cells. We just need to maximize its ability to do that. Does that make sense? So, whenever we do these classes, the knowledge that we share with you guys here is obviously, it's important and powerful, but, really it's, taking that, applying it to your life, making some of those changes that you need to make. Everybody here is showing up at a different place when it comes to their journey and getting their health back or just overall wellness. And so you start where you're at, okay, and start making some changes, do the best that you can. And I'm confident that if you start to apply this, it's really going to make a big difference for you. Cool? So let's go ahead and jump right in. So about a month ago, myself, what is this? Myself and the gals here, we flew down to Boise for a conference. And so we're on one of these airplanes here. Anybody been on an airplane lately? All right. So quite a few of you. So want you to think about this real quick. So if we had about 4 to 5 jets crashing each and every day, 365 days a year, would you probably be thinking twice about getting on an airplane tomorrow, flying someplace? Probably, right? And so just when we went through 9/11, I mean, that was only 3 jets, and I think it was about a couple thousand people, maybe 1,500 people passed away with that whole tragedy. But because of that, like the amount of people that were choosing to fly went down dramatically. And so same thing with if we had 5 jumbo jets crashing every day, like that's huge. So I bring this up because if you actually look at the number of people that end up passing away from cancer every single year, it's the equivalent of that. So it's actually, we did this class, it's been 3-4 years since we did this class, but back when we did it last was, I think, 2018. At that time, it was about 590,000 people ended up dying each year from cancer. Now it's up over 600,000. So these numbers are just progressively, getting worse every year. And so, and on your guys' sheet here, so according to the American Cancer Society, 1 out of 2 men and 1 out of 3 women are expected to develop cancer some point during their life. And so they're projecting these rates to increase by 75% just in the next 8 years. And I think it's probably going to be even maybe a little bit faster than that because of some of the things that have kind of come up the last couple years here and what we've been doing. We're going to talk more about that a little bit later. But obviously what we're doing here is not working. And so Dr. Otis Brawley, he used to be the chief medical officer for the American Cancer Society. He's out of Atlanta. And so he said in his book, it's a really good book, it's How We Do Harm, but it's one cancer cell smarter than 1,000 cancer scientists. So we're never going to really one-up nature and cancer cells, but what we can do is work with our body and the intelligence that God has given us in our bodies to actually do that, because that's what our body's programmed to do. It knows how to fight these things off. And so we need to make some changes, and we need to ask some better questions. Like, how is it that, over the last, like I said, 50 years, these rates of cancers continue to go up? We've made very little progress. We spent $2 to $3 trillion since the war on cancer started on finding a cure and looking into genetics and all these kind of things. And so does anybody know how long, if you were to count to 1 trillion in seconds, how long it would take you? It's 31,910 years to count to 1 trillion in seconds. If you were to save $1 trillion, from the time that you're born to the time that you're 80 years old, you have to save 34 million a day. Okay, so that really puts things into perspective, how much money we put in this, and then let alone talking about our national debt. We won't get into that, but so how much progress have we actually made? So when you think about that, really there is no business that's in business to put themselves out of business. And so, like it or not, the cancer industry is a big business. I mean, they make billions of dollars every single year on treating cancer, doing tests, doing all the stuff that they do. And so really there isn't very much incentive for them to actually find a cure for cancer, because just think about it, like if there actually was a cure, people weren't getting sick and they're healthy, what would happen to all the nonprofits? What would happen to all the cancer centers? What would happen to the drug companies if they don't have the medications that they charge $100,000 for a year to give to people just to treat their cancer? They'd just be out of business, right? And so do you think they want that? Absolutely not. They don't want to hurt their profits. And so anybody love Shark Tank in here? Shark Tank? Yeah. So this was a few years ago, but they had a company on there that was, they had some sort of, it was kind of like a little device or whatnot that helped people with allergies. And it was really kind of ridiculous looking, but you put this thing, it's kind of like a breathe right, but it goes over your nose and it helps to filter what goes in your nose. It's supposed to help with allergies. And they were like, well, why don't you just take this instead of trying to go up against all these big companies and license it to them, and they can deal with that. And so the company, they said that they tried that, but all the medical companies and drug companies that they approached about it were like, we're not really interested in that. If we did buy your company, we would probably just shelf it, because why would we treat something, or why would we cure something for $1 when we can actually treat it for $14? Okay, so it's just about dollars and cents for them, and really what's going to make them the most money. And unfortunately, healthy people doesn't make the drug companies and medical industry very much money, does it? Okay, so and the other thing is that we're focusing on treating the cancer instead of preventing it. Okay, and so because if all we did, again, tying in with what we did was educate people how to eat well, move their body, some of the things they're going to be learning tonight, and they prevented cancer to begin with, then again, there's very little profit, very little money for them to be making in the cancer industry. So we're really just kind of focusing on the wrong thing when we should be, instead of treating it, we should be focusing on what we can do to actually stop it and prevent it altogether. And so a lot of it isn't, we just don't really understand that much about what causes cancer. Not that many studies are done on this, and let alone the information doesn't get out there, because what you read in the news, what you see on TV, unless you know where to look and how to really find the information, it's covered up for the most part by the government, by the the news industries, because they're sponsored by who? The drug companies. So in a non-election year, ads on TV and newspapers and stuff like that, over 80% of their revenue comes from drug companies. So there again, just follow the money, and that's where it's going. And so So really what it comes down to then is understanding where health comes from. And you really got to look at your environment, okay? And so it all comes down to the environment. So over here you have, on the left, you have healthy, green, vibrant looking pasture. And on the right side, you have a landfill, okay? And so you got, a bunch of garbage all over the place. So over here, everything is vibrant, healthy, doing what it needs to do, working synergistically with each other. And then over here, you have a ground that's sick. And so if you have ground that's sick and there's garbage and food and, stuff like that over the place, what's that going to attract? That's going to attract disease. It's going to attract pests, because pests, whether it be buzzards, rats, maggots, whatever the case may be, they're opportunists, okay? And so they know that this is where the easiest place is for them to find the food and to thrive, right? So if all you did was go in and start killing off the pests, you shoot the buzzards and do all that stuff to get rid of the pests, but you don't actually do anything to clean up the landfill and all the garbage there that's attracting them, guess what's going to come back shortly down the road? All the pests, right? Because you didn't do anything to fix the cause of the problem. All you're doing is just treating the symptom. Okay, now watch this. So if you take all the pests and put them over here into this healthy pasture where they don't have the food and the resources that they usually rely on to live and to thrive, guess what they're going to do? They're going to leave because they can't live there, right? They're going to go back to this environment, which is what they like. And so the same thing happens with her body. And so all disease, so disease cannot exist in a healthy body that's functioning and working at 100%, okay? So disease, whether it be cancer, the flu, diabetes, COVID, whatever the case is, thrives in a body that's sick or it's not working and functioning like it's supposed to, okay? You ever thought about that? Like, how is it that some people in a family, come down with the flu or some sort of virus or something, and then some other people in the family don't? Obviously, they're exposed to the same germs. It's just one person that got sick, their immune system was suppressed or whatever, their body wasn't as resilient as the other person who was able to maybe be exposed to the germs and virus, but they didn't actually end up getting the symptoms of it, even though they may have necessarily had. Does that make sense? So that's one of the ones on your guys' sheet. So disease only exists in the absence of health. So disease, cancer, fill in the blank, whatever illness it is, cannot and will not occur in a body that's working and healing at 100%. So what do you need to do then? So if you want to prevent these illnesses, cancer, whatever the case is, then we need to get our body looking more like this and clean up your environment. And so that way germs, viruses, cancer, those sorts of things can't live and survive there, okay? So it starts with understanding what health actually is. So health, and a lot of you guys have heard this before, but health is when your body's working optimally at 100%. So 0% function would be dead, right? And so disease lives somewhere right here in the middle. So you don't get cancer and then you're sick. You're sick first and then you actually get cancer. So you start losing function. You start eating poorly. You don't get enough sleep. You're not drinking enough water, not moving your body. These sorts of things you just start to add up, and your body starts to go down and down and down and down. And then now those pests or those opportunists start to thrive, whether it's a virus, cancer, whatever the case is. And that's when you actually get diagnosed or have some sort of illness or problem come up, right? So if you want to make sure that your body's working at 100%, then these are some of the key areas that you want to be working on. So your mind, so reducing your stress, getting sleep, making sure that your spine and nerve system's working well. That's the foundation, runs all the functions in your body. Making sure you're putting the right food in. Your food, as we'll talk about in a little bit, is the building blocks for your body and all your cells. Moving your body, helping get oxygen to your cells, and then getting the waste and the toxins out. So those are the key areas. If you work on those, then that's going to improve your function in your body, which is going to reduce the chances of you actually getting sick. So what is cancer? Now, if you say the word cancer, what's the first thing that really pops in your mind? First, just shout it out. A mass. Oh, a mass, okay. So most people, they hear the word cancer and they're like immediately like, oh gosh, this is bad, like, death sentence almost, right? And so the reason why that is because a lot of times, we're scared into that, or, maybe we've seen that kind of unfold with other people in our, circle, with our friends or family. But when you really understand what it is and how our body works, it makes it a lot less scary. And so if you just think about your body as a bunch of cells, so you have about 37 and some change trillion cells in your body. And so every second you have millions of cells that are being formed. You have millions of other cells that are dying off. Every 3-4 days you make a brand new stomach lining. Every 30 days you get all new skin. Every 90 days or so you actually build a brand new heart. Isn't that amazing? And so the thing is what cancer is, and so these cells, depending on the kind of cell and the part of your body, they have programmed when they're born, and then they have a set date that they're supposed to die. Okay, and that's called apoptosis. Fancy word, but that's the life cycle or cell cycle. So what cancer really is that when those cells, in whatever kind of cell it is, when they don't die when they're supposed to, that's why they call it a tumor. The cells just basically keep replicating, and they don't actually die. And so that's all cancer really is. And so it's just the cells replicating out of control. And so it's really a survival mechanism that your body has. And so this is out of the journal Cancer Metastasis. So it says in this journal article, cancer is a natural wound healing related process. If the cause of the wound, or if the wound persists, the continuous natural process will lead to cancer mass. So the easiest analogy I can use to help you guys understand how cancer really is actually your body trying to protect you is like, we're getting into the fall, so pretty soon everybody's gonna be out raking their yards, right? So if you're out there raking, if you haven't raked in a while and you're not wearing any gloves or anything like that, what's probably gonna start to show up on your hands? You're gonna get some blisters, right? I know it happens to me, but if you keep raking and raking and raking over the course of days or months, eventually what's your body gonna do to where that damage is happening from the rake? It's going to turn into callus. So is that your body doing something right or wrong? It's actually doing something right. It's protecting you. It knows that you keep damaging and damaging and damaging the area, so your body actually changes the tissue type, hardens that to protect you from that constant damage. Now, if that keeps happening and happening over time, same thing with cancer. That's pretty much what cancer is. You keep damaging and damaging that area of your body from your lifestyle, foods, toxins, whatever the case is. So then your body is actually going to form a mass to try to protect you. A lot of times it'll form like a casing around the cancer cells to try to keep them from getting to other parts of your body. So pretty cool. So one of the things is, especially when it comes to cancer, is that, and a lot of the research and everything is all focused on the genetics, okay? Well, if you look at the rates of cancer, back in 1900, they were 1 in 500. Now they're pretty much 1 in 2, like we talked about. So and they've done, the NIH, National Institutes of Health, have done studies on identical twins, exact same genes, and they found that only about 5 to 10% of the cancers are attributed to your actual genetics. And even then, we have control over which genes in our body are turned on or off through triggers through your environment, like we're talking about. And there's done lots of studies on this. In fact, Dean Ornish, anybody heard of him before? So he is one of the big, researchers, I guess, pioneers when it comes to epigenetics and talking about the environment's influence on our genetics. But anyway, so he took, it was a group of men, and they were at risk for prostate cancer. And basically, they went through like a 90-day program where they did mindful practices. They moved their body, they ate better, things like that. And they tracked their genes before and after. And so at 90 days from just making those positive lifestyle changes, they turned on about 48 genes that help your body prevent cancer. And they turned off like 453 genes that actually can trigger cancer. Pretty cool. And so whether or not, I know for me, I have cancer that runs in my family. Quite a few family members have dealt with that. So I want you guys to be empowered that just because you have those genes in your family, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get it. If you can make these changes, then your chances go down quite a bit. And so our genes have only changed 0.02% the last 40,000 years. But again, these disease rates have just gone up and up and up. And so there isn't even enough genes to correlate with all the illnesses and cancers that are out there. So it's not really our genes, only a very small percentage of it actually is. But when it comes to cancer and any illness for that matter, you need to pay attention to the questions that are being asked, because the questions that you ask are ultimately going to determine a lot of the answers and solutions that you get. Okay, so let's just use a plant for example. Now, everybody can see that. We have any gardeners in here?
That plant needs water.
Okay, this is good. I'm glad we're talking about this. So, because if you went into a plant doctor and they basically saw your plant, talked to the plant about all the symptoms that they're having, you can clearly see that the plant, the leaves are wilting, not looking very good. So, if this was actually in our medical system, then they would come up with do a bunch of expensive tests, come up with a fancy, scary diagnosis to give the plant about how bad he is, and then, based on that, what treatment they need to do. And so, usually in our healthcare system, that basically is with cancer, it's cut, poison, burn. So we can remove the cancer, we can give you chemotherapy for the cancer, or we can do radiation for the cancer. So why is it that there is never any other natural solutions other than a drug or surgery? I have friends in chiropractic school that in order for them to get natural treatments for cancer, they had to leave the country. And a lot of the people that are successful natural or alternative type of doctors in the U.S. that are successfully treating and curing people from cancer, guess what happens to them? They get shut down, or they get, they get sued, they get, just constant bombardment with hassles that they have to deal with the FDA or whoever, that there's like, I can't even deal with this. Like the amount of lawsuits that are having fires to put out, like they just stop doing it. So, but anyway, so because you're answering the questions for their symptoms and their illness instead of actually, like Jolene was saying, like what are the plant's needs? So if you have a sick plant, most of us would logically think about, well, what do the plant needs to be healthy? It needs water. What else does a plant need? Sunlight. It needs sunlight. It needs nutrients. It needs good soil. Yeah. It needs air. So clearly a plant, logically, and this is how we think about it with other things besides our body, like it's lacking, or maybe it's getting too much in one of those areas. And so maybe you'll give it some water and see if that helps. Maybe you'll put it in the window to get some more sunlight and see if that helps. So, and then the thing is that if that symptom doesn't change, it doesn't necessarily mean that adding those things was necessarily bad for the plant. You just haven't really found out what the imbalance is and actually been able to address the cause. Does that make sense? So if this was happening again in our healthcare system, like, we could spray paint the leaves green, we could cut them off, and then now you don't see the wilting, leaves, and probably fine then. But again, we don't fix anything about the cause of the plant's sickness. We're just, again, treating the symptoms, which is pretty much what happens in our, cancer industry. Like, you still have a sick plant there, right? Does that make any sense to anybody? Absolutely not. So we got to do things differently. We got to ask better questions. And so the first thing we need to do to really make some progress with this is start with our mindset. Okay? And so our mind is super powerful. What you think about and focus on, it starts to expand in your life, okay? And we can really tie in with this with the last couple years especially, with the bombardment with negative news and, death tolls and everything else, that all the health problems, because that's all people could focus on or talk about, anxiety, depression, like all these issues have just continued to go up. It suppressed people's immune system even more. And so you really need to be aware of what you're focusing on. So when it comes to cancer, if all you're focusing on the sickness and disease and, oh my gosh, I'm going to die and things like that, then your chances of getting through it are going down just because of what you're thinking about. Does that make sense? So there's a guy by the name of Morris Goodman, and he was in a really bad plane crash and when he was in his 30s, and pretty much broke the top bones in his neck, and all of his muscles were destroyed, and he wound up in the hospital, and doctors pretty much told him that, there's nothing you're going to be able to do. You're going to be on a ventilator the rest of your life and pretty much be in a wheelchair. That's, awesome. Great way to pick up. So all he could do was pretty much blink and think was about it. And so he basically told himself that he was going to walk out of that hospital by Christmas, which was only 8 months down the road. And so again, starting out, like he couldn't do anything. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe on his own, nothing. But what he could do was control his thoughts. And so he started to visualize himself walking again and his body healing and everything. And, before he started making some progress, and, before long he was, able to move again a little bit and start to eat some food. And so sure enough, 8 months later, guess what happened? He walked out of there. It's amazing. So that's how powerful your mind is. And so we really got to ditch the stinking thinking. And so when it comes to cancer, really any illness, the number one thing that people often can kind of get tied up with is it's not going to happen to me, right? And so I'm all about positive affirmations and positive thinking, like that's all great. And you need to do that stuff. But if you're not backing it up with actual actions like what he was doing and visualizing, and then eventually like doing his exercises and stuff so he can move his body again, then you're really just kind of fooling yourself. Okay, so you got to make the changes. You can't just be telling yourself I'm not going to get sick, not going to get sick as you're eating a Big Mac and washing it down with a Coca-Cola, because you're not really helping yourself out very much there. So really, you got to live it as if it's happening now, because if you can kind of have that sort of urgency and have that approach, then you're going to be much more successful. Second thing is, I've tried making these changes before, or I've tried before and it failed, so I'm not going to do it anymore. I just give up pretty much. Okay, so if you just quit and never try again, then what are your chances of ever succeeding? 0, right? So maybe change your approach a little bit. Maybe you'll have an accountability partner. Maybe hire a coach, or get somebody that knows what they're doing and been successful at that to help show you how to do how to make these improvements. And guess what? You're probably going to be a lot more successful at actually accomplishing that. Next thing is just not having any time. So for this one, it's just, it's common, it comes up. Everybody's busy these days, right? There's so much going on. Kids got soccer, all this kind of stuff. But why is it that when we actually get sick or get diagnosed with cancer, we quit our job, we move across the state, you're sitting in a hospital all day long, getting treatments? Why do we wait until we have some sort of dangerous sickness or illness to really take our health seriously and make the time for health? There's a saying that goes, if you don't make time for your health now, you're going to have to make time to treat your disease later. Okay, and so we want you guys to really kind of have that in mind, and really where you spend your time and money are the things that are most important to you. And so if you lose your health, a lot of times people don't realize until it's gone, then you're spending a lot of your time and money trying to get that back. And that's the fourth one is really, people think that getting healthy is expensive, buying organic, doing all this kind of stuff. So the reality is your health is an investment, right? But I can guarantee you, and I'll prove it, that your health is more important than money, right? So anybody know what the number one cause of bankruptcy is right now in the U.S.?
Probably medical.
It's medical bills. So people waiting, unfortunately, until they get sick, and they find out, oh crap, like I'm sick, like this sucks, like I want to get my health back, and they're willing to spend way more money to try to regain their health, and it's way more expensive to try to get their health back once they've lost it. But then on the flip side, if you are healthy, so say Steve Jobs walked up to you and said, hey, I see you're healthy, you're doing great, I have pancreatic cancer, I'll give you $100,000, $200,000 to trade me organs. Would you do that? No. You can do that? That's a lot of money. No, you still wouldn't do that? Why not? Because your health, your family, these things are more important than money. You can make more money, but you only get one life, one body, and you want to make sure that you're taking care of that. So how do you work with your mind to help your body heal? So number one, it's getting rid of the negative news, radio, all that kind of stuff. Cut that stuff out. Even some of the people that that might be in your life that are very negative, they bring you down, they bring your energy down. So you need to just kind of self-reflect on who those people are. It doesn't mean if it's a family member, like you don't necessarily need to cut them off, but just minimize your time around them so you can really focus on you and staying healthy. And surround yourself with those people that are more optimistic, and positive. Laughing, that's a big one. So even a lot of cancer centers, hospitals, they have like clowns or people that go around to make people laugh. And because they found that that even just 1 minute of anger reduces your immune system for up to 6 hours. And just a few minutes of laughter increases your immune system for up to 24 hours. So the reason for that is because anger, it puts yourself in that fight or flight, so it actually constricts your blood vessels, so you get less oxygen, less nutrients, things like that getting out your cells. Laughter actually opens them up, so you get better circulation to help your body function better. Box breathing is another big one. So cancer cells, we'll talk more about in a little bit later, but they hate oxygen. So working on your breathing, anybody who's heard of box breathing before, a few of you that have been to some of the classes. So that's where you're breathing in through your nose, holding it for 3 to 5 seconds, and then you breathe out through your mouth for 3 to 5 seconds. And if you put your tongue kind of right behind your front 2 teeth there, that actually stimulates your vagus nerve, which is your rest and digest, helps your immune system. That can actually is really important for vagal stimulation. And then using those positive affirmations. So those are some key things that you can be working on as far as your mindset goes when it comes to staying healthy and preventing cancer, keeping your immune system strong. So now we're going to talk about just the overall diet. So I love this quote by Ann Wigmore. It's like the food that you eat is either the safest, most powerful form of medicine, or it's the slowest form of poison. And so if you look at the standard American diet, which primarily consists of fast food, processed foods, in one of our other nutrition classes, there's only about 6% of the calories that people take in are actually from like vegetables. Okay, and that includes, I think, French fries, which they're calling a vegetable because it comes from potatoes. So what's that?
Mostly potato chips and French fries is what we eat for vegetables.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you think about that, though, like the foods that we're putting in your body are what your body is actually using to build all your cells out of. And so if you're putting in a bunch of garbage, fast foods and Coke and Doritos and things like that, like, unfortunately, that's what your body has to try to make your cells out of. Okay, is it going to be making very healthy, thriving cells when you're putting in garbage that it can, maybe use like 1 to 2% of? Not very good. So you're going to have a really weak house, a weak body, which again is going to create that environment that's ideal for disease, cancer, those sorts of things to thrive and start to take over. So I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything here.
You didn't answer 6 yet, did you?
I haven't gotten that quite far yet. We're getting to that in a second. So when it comes to your diet, what you can be doing, number one is just eliminating the processed foods and the fast foods. So if you're eating those things are really bad for you. A lot of bad fats, a lot of sugar, things that turn to sugar. They have all kinds of artificial sweeteners and preservatives in there. So eliminating that. Sugar as well. So cancer cells tend to thrive off of sugar. That's why they attach a radioactive molecule to sugar, and that's what they use on PET scans, because cancer cells have 8 to 16 times the receptors for sugar. So it goes right to the cancer cells. So cutting down on the sugars that you're consuming and the things that turn to sugar, which would be what? Carbs. Yep. So pastas, rice, breads. So those sorts of things, cutting those down, or at least getting a lot healthier options instead of eating white bread and pasta, which is like converted to sugar in seconds, getting the less processed or just sprouted, and start to cut back on that stuff anyway. So all the foods that we're putting in your body, if they're full of bad fats, toxins, things like that, they damage our gut. And so our gut is extremely important, especially when it comes to your immune system, because 80% of your immune system comes from your gut. So in your gut, you have trillions of bacteria and microbes. You have more bugs in your gut than you do cells in your entire body. And so the problem is that when we're taking like processed foods or that tend to be loaded with antibiotics as well, processed meats, that damages our good bacteria in our gut, and even just everything that we've been doing the last couple years, because you go in any grocery store, like every place that you go is like spraying, hand sanitizers and Clorox wipes and everything. All that stuff is really affecting our gut and our microbiome. And so, unfortunately, long term, that's not very good. Even though it might kill some of the germs, it's also killing the good germs and stuff on our skin, and that gets into our body and helps actually keep our immune system strong. So it's really actually suppressing people's immune system more over time when we're not actually exposed to these sorts of microbes day in, day out, so our body can actually get stronger. But anyway, so they've been doing research on the adding in bacteria with healthy bacteria with like immunotherapy or just having a strong gut, and they found that it's super successful, pretty much like killing tumor cells in a lot of these studies that are out there. So maintaining a healthy gut function and the bacteria in there are very important. And that was one of the things on your sheet here. 80% immune function comes from our gut digestive tract. So a lot of you are probably dealing with some sort of gut issue. It would be constipation, acid reflux, food allergies, whatever the case is. So these are the 4 key steps and process to help to heal and repair your gut so you can increase your immune system and let alone help with some of those other digestive problems. So number 1, you got to start with removing the bad stuff that's causing the damage, inflammation in your gut. So those are a lot of the things we're talking about food-wise, with the processed foods, sugars, artificial sweeteners, other toxins from your personal care products, genetically modified foods, those sorts of things, making sure that you're getting a good water filter, stuff like that. Replacing those with healthy products that help heal your gut. So coconut products like fermented foods, kimchi, sauerkraut, bone broth is one of the best things for healing and repairing your gut. Things like that are going to help to repair your gut, keep it strong and healthy. And then repairing it, you can add in some other supplements too. So if you have any sort of imbalance in the bacteria in your gut, it's helpful to use various different like essential oils. You can use like peppermint's a good one, ginger's a good one. Those sorts of things can help to kill off the bad bacteria so you can get proper balance in there. And then also L-glutamine is another, it's an amino acid that helps to heal and seal the digestive tract. And then once you get through that stuff, then you work on rebalancing. So a lot of times people just jump right into this and start adding in probiotics when they haven't actually made the changes to do any of this other stuff first. And they're getting frustrated because they're wondering why it's not working. Well, you're just taking probiotics, but you're still eating a bunch of garbage and things like that. So there's a set process that you need to go through when it comes to healing your gut. So these are a couple of things that I recommend when it comes to supporting your gut health and your immune system. So we mentioned bone broth a little earlier. So you can make it on your own, which is great. It's probably the best way to do it. But if it's something that you're going to be using like daily, like it's kind of a lot of work to make that, and it can be stinky depending on if you're using an Instant Pot or a crock pot. So anyway, what I use is our keto protein, which is basically comes from bone broth, and it's rich in amino acids, helps to heal your gut. It has adaptogen herbs in there, which helps to control your stress response. And it's also got healthy fats in there, which are also important for gut health as well. Using some greens. So 1 scoop of the greens is the equivalent of about 10 servings of fruits and vegetables. And then you're getting a lot of the pro and prebiotics in there as well, which are basically the fuel for the bacteria and stuff in your digestive tract. And then it's also anti-inflammatory. And then these are a couple of ones. Once you get to the repair stage and rebalance stage, then these are what you're going to be adding in. So the leaky gut, so that has the L-glutamine in it that I'd mentioned, and then the probiotics. So a key thing with the probiotics, like it's important to understand that you can go to like a grocery store or something like that. You'll see the probiotics in the fridge area. So usually they're very limited on the strains that they have in there, and because they're in a fridge, means that they're not very stable. They're not very hardy like organisms that are in there. So the chances of them actually making it, if you're taking it orally through your digestive tract into your gut and helping to repair and rebalance your gut are pretty slim. They're probably going to die off before they actually get there. So you want something that as like soil-based, that's organism, that's what that stands for. So they're hardy organisms, so you don't have to refrigerate them, so they're more likely to actually make it into your digestive system so they can do what they are designed to do. So a couple of other things to take note is we're going to talk about angiogenesis. Anybody heard of that before? So this is a lot of cancer drugs. This is their target mechanism is with cancer cells, they can kind of remain dormant. Where they become a problem is that if they recruit blood vessels or circulation, because that's where they can get into the bloodstream and go to other areas of the body, and they get more nutrients that way so they can thrive more. And so many cancer drugs, they are what they call anti-angiogenic. So it basically helps to cut off the blood supply to those particular areas, and so that way they can't get any bigger. So these are some of the foods that naturally do that. And so you want to be adding these into your diet on a regular basis. A lot of these I use in my smoothies in the morning, with a lot of the berries and turmeric and things like lemons and things like that. And so one of the cancer drugs is called Avastin, which they charge people, it's over $100,000 a year. It treats breast cancer. And this is a specific mechanism that it does. And so if all people did was add more of these things, it actually works way better than that. Okay, I'll play this video here real quick, maybe.
Vitamin D and cancer in a way we've never heard before. Doctors know that low levels of the vitamin can lead to a host of illnesses, but now research might actually hold the key to fighting cancer. John McKenzie has a story.
The studies just keep coming, the evidence mounting. Low levels of vitamin D are now linked to so many illnesses, from breast, colon, and prostate cancers, type 1 diabetes and asthma, to multiple sclerosis and heart disease.
I even think of vitamin D as the fountain of youth, if you will, in that it allows us to age well.
At least that's the hope. And nowhere is the evidence more compelling than here in the laboratory.
So all the work here is on vitamin D?
Yes, we've got
Professor Joellen Welsh has spent the last 25 years studying the powerful effect of vitamin D on cells.
These are human breast cancer cells growing in the flask.
Taken from a woman who had breast cancer?
Yes.
Now watch what happens when you add a potent form of vitamin D. Within just 4 days, half those cancer cells are dead.
It looks like the cancer cells have basically shriveled up and died.
The longer they're treated with vitamin D, the more of its effect we see. What happens is that vitamin D enters the cells and it triggers this cell death process. It's similar to what we see when we treat cells with tamoxifen.
A drug used to treat breast cancer?
Yes.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. It's a very dramatic effect.
That was just the beginning. Researchers here then took human breast cancer cells and injected them into mice. Tumors quickly began to grow, but when the mice were treated with vitamin D, the tumors began to shrink. Look, this one was reduced to half its size. The one here disappeared entirely. Similar results have been seen on colon and prostate tumors in mice. The real test, however, remains. Will vitamin D work this way in people? Other lab work is revealing how vitamin D can actually improve the way cells function in the heart and in blood vessels.
And the number one killer is vascular disease, and vitamin D makes our arteries more healthy, basically. It allows them to age well.
Preliminary, tantalizing research on a common nutrient with so much potential. For Good Morning America, John McKenzie, ABC News, Albany, New York.
All right. Well, so vitamin D, obviously, that's important. How come, our government, the drug companies don't want people to know about this? Guess what? It's not making them any money. But the problem is that 75% of our population is deficient in this one vitamin. It's very difficult to get from food. There's a few sources with like milk, salmon. You can get a little bit, but it's definitely not enough to get your levels back up to where they need to be. And so where you want to be, who here has had their vitamin D levels tested before? Okay, so a few guys. So where you want to be on your test is between 60 to 90 nanograms per mole. Okay, that's really where you get the most benefits of it. Most people, especially here in the Northwest, are pretty low. I'd say maybe around 20 if you're lucky. And so that's why it's super important to make sure that you're supplementing, especially for this. It helps, like they said in the video, helps with reducing your cancer risk, helps with heart disease, helps with viruses, the flu, things like that, colds, COVID, all that kind of stuff. Like vitamin D is the #1 supplement. If you're not taking it or not taking enough of it, you need to make sure that you're doing that. Okay. So what I usually recommend for people, #1, you should have your levels tested. But most people for maintenance or wellness need to be around 5,000 to 10,000 IUs per day, depending on where you're at, just for maintenance and wellness. Now, if you're sick or you're kind of fighting something off, then usually you can bump that up for maybe 20 to 50,000 for a few days, or to help your body kind of overcome that, and then drop that back down to maintenance or wellness. But yeah, so it helps with all these other things: depression, diabetes, weight loss, keeping your bones healthy. A couple key things with vitamin D is making sure that the one that you're using has vitamin K2 in it. That helps with absorption of the D3 into your system so you can actually use it. So now we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about exercise. And so exercise, as simple as it is, most or approximately half Americans aren't actually getting as much exercise as they should be. So, but the reality is that exercise is more than just for weight loss or looking good or anything like that, but it can actually help reduce your cancer risk by 40 up to 70%. Okay, and so anybody know what the success rate is, or the 5-year survival rate is for chemotherapy? It's low, and it kind of depends a little bit on the type of cancer, but there's a study from Clinical Oncology in 2004, I believe it was, and they looked at patients in the US, and then I think the other was over in Australia, and the 5-year survival rate was just over 2%. So if your doctor said, hey, we're going to use this, and by the way, it's a 98% failure rate, like chances are you'd probably just walk out of his office. But looking at like doing something like exercise that doesn't have all the side effects, doesn't cost you any money, you can do this anywhere, and it's got a much higher success rate and a lot of the other health benefits that come along with it. It's kind of a no-brainer. So, but how you exercise is super important, okay? So doing anything is better than nothing. Like if you're just going to go on a walk, moving your body, just really try to move your body. Outside is best if you can. But when it comes to like getting the most out of your exercise in the least amount of time to help with your, I don't have enough time excuse, then you can do what's called burst training. Okay, and so this is a type of exercise where you're basically going at a high intensity for a short period of time, and then you're taking a break for right around the same amount of time that you're exercising. So you're going hard, 80, 90% what your max heart rate is, and then you're resting. And so what this does is it causes an afterburn after you're done exercising for 24 to 48 hours. Your body's basically burning fat and building muscle. It causes a hormone response, and it's very efficient because you're getting a lot of oxygen in because you're breathing so hard because you're working at such a high heart rate that the oxygen gets your cells very quickly. And so again, cancer cells, they hate oxygen, right? So guess what we're going to do right now? Everybody's looking a little bit sleepy. Everybody up. Come on. It's burst training time. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to do 2 or 3 rounds. And just because of space, we can just kind of do rapid punches like this in front of you. And we're going to go hard for 20 seconds, rest for 20 seconds. We'll go hard for 20 seconds. And I'm pretty sure after the second round, you guys are already begging to stop. All right. Maybe, where'd my pointer go? There it is.
We're going to
So
shadow bomb.
we need, yes. We need some music here. All right. Everybody, get ready on your mark. Get set and go. Push, 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 push. Fast as you can, fast as you can. That's only 10 seconds. You better get going. Come on, come on. 5 more seconds. Pick up the pace. Come on. All right, take a break. So, woo, that was 20 seconds of working out. You don't have any time to work out? What's the problem? All right, so work on your breathing, deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. Get your heart rate down. All right, you guys are going to go again in 5 seconds. Ready? 3, 2, 1, and go. Punch, punch, punch. Who went to the bathroom? Who's hiding in the bathroom here? Somebody's hiding in the bathroom. Oh, they're doing double when they get out of there. Jeez. Looking good, guys. Keep it going. Oh, I forgot to keep track of time. All right, take a break. All right, you got one more in you? I think you do. That's going to be only a 1 minute exercise. All right, 10. No. And if you want to get real crazy, you can run it place. All right, ready, go. Punch, 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 punch. So the nice thing about burst training is it doesn't take any fancy equipment. You can do this anywhere, your basement, if you're traveling. You can mix it up. You can do squats. You can do burpees. You can do sit-ups, push-ups. Keep going. All right, give your neighbor a high five. Woohoo! All right, you guys can go ahead and sit down. Yeah. All right, I hear some people breathing hard. My job is accomplished.
You've done it.
I've done it. All right, let me just double check here, make sure I'm getting everything. Yeah. So I think, did everybody get number 6?
There's 2, is it both?
Yeah, so cancer cells feed off of sugar. So to starve, kill cancer cells, one must eliminate sugars and things that turn to sugar. So those are a lot of the things that we mentioned. So the grains, pastas, cereal, bread, stuff like that. Then you guys got 7. Got number 8?
Yeah.
Okay. And then number 9's burst training or metabolic conditioning. So with that, so you're going to basically do 3 rounds, and then you rest for like a minute, and then you can do 3 rounds of a different exercise if you want. And then you rest for a minute, and then you can do 3 rounds. So basically, you do like 4 rounds of different exercises or the same exercise if you want. And so basically, you're getting an amazing workout in just 12 minutes. So it's pretty easy to get that in. So right now, we're going to talk about the spine a little bit. So Hippocrates, father of modern medicine, said, "Look to the spine for the cause of disease." And so interesting story. So this is Siamese twins. They're named Masha and Dasha, and they were born back in the 1950s over in Russia. And so they, I think, just passed away in 2003, but they were extensively studied because, as you can see, they're conjoined basically at the hip here. And so they share all the same circulatory system, same digestive system. Pretty much the only thing that they didn't really share was obviously, their head and their spine, so their nervous system, their spine. And one of the reasons why they were very interested in them is because they're finding that even though they share a lot of those same organs and the same blood supply and everything like that, one of the sisters was constantly getting sick with colds, they got the measles, things like that, but the other one actually didn't end up getting any of those illnesses. And so how is it that if it was just because of the germs or the virus, like it's obviously getting into both of their bloodstream, why didn't they both actually get sick? And so the only thing they can come up with is because that they have a separate spine and nerve system. And so again, we talked about that your nerve system is what's controlling all the functions and healing in your body. So the one, her body that wasn't getting sick had a better or greater resilience to those viruses and those germs that was able to actually, even though she's probably exposed to them, she wasn't necessarily getting a lot of the symptoms and expressing the same, issues that her sister was because hers was not as strong. And so, so that's how key it is that making sure that your brain has full communication with all those organs. And so that way things know what to do, when to do that, keep your immune system strong. And your spine is very important in that to make sure that the organ or the message can get it there. And so you want to make sure that that is nice and straight. You have those curves in it from the side, so that way your body can function like it's designed to. Now, what happens from sitting at a desk all day long, or car accidents, or slips on the ice, shoveling snow? We're going to be doing that here pretty soon, unfortunately. But that causes subluxations. Again, so that's where the spine, the vertebrae get out of alignment. That damages those nerves, and that can shut down the messages getting out that nerve to wherever it's going in your body. So if that's happening down in your lower back, well, guess what? Those are the nerves that go out to all your digestive organs. They go out to your reproductive system. It affects your hormones. And so if that's going on, it doesn't matter if you're eating a lot of great nutrients and supplements and things like that. If your body isn't able to actually absorb those because it's not getting the proper communication from the brain, then you're probably just kind of wasting your money. I mean, it's better than eating McDonald's and stuff like that, but you're not getting the most out of it that you could. And so you want to make sure that those organs are getting there. So I want to go through a couple examples here of some patients I've had over the years, just to help you understand like how problems, and I can look at somebody's spine and tell which organs are going to be getting affected, like if they don't do something about this. So this is a gal who I met a few years back. She's 38 years old, and she came in. She's a fitness instructor. So from the outside, she looked like an amazing house. She looked super healthy, very fit, in shape, great nutrition. She was getting numbness in her hands, had a lot of neck pain though, headaches, breathing problems, digestive issues, which you don't see in this one, but she had some scoliosis as well. And she had been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma twice. And so I was like, you need to come in. We need to check your spine. I bet you that they're missing. They're not looking at it. That's why they're missing that. And so she went through all these tests, spent so much money on just the medical system. And we did a nerve scan on her, and then we did x-rays. And so you can see up here her lower neck all red down there. That's right in this area where she has a reverse curve in her neck, degeneration in the lower neck. And so those are the nerves that go down her hands, causing the numbness, the neck pain. Also goes out to her lymphatic system, go out to her lungs, affecting her breathing. And then she also had problems down in through here, which are going out to all of her digestive organs or reproductive organs. And so here's another patient, non-smoker, ended up developing cancer in her lung. And so if it was just from bad diet and whatnot, like, how do you get cancer just in one lung? If it's just from the air that you're breathing in, like the air is getting into both lungs. But she came in, she was referred in by another patient, and we did this x-ray on her. And this is the right side of her body, this is the left side. Severe scoliosis. I mean, you couldn't even tell, unfortunately, that with her posture, because her body compensated so much that her spine looked like this. But the nerves are getting shut down coming off the left side of her spine, which are going out to her left lung. And guess what lung she got cancer in? Left lung. Why? Because it wasn't functioning at a level as it was on the right side because of the nerve damage. So here's another patient, came in, some slight scoliosis with her lower back. She had basically 9 months prior to coming in, had a headache every single day. She was taking 8 Tylenol a day. She also was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and she had a history of uterine cancer, which they went in and did a complete hysterectomy. So they never asked the questions, why aren't these organs working correctly? Like, if they're in our body, they serve a purpose there, okay? Yeah, you can prevent Alzheimer's by taking somebody's brain out, or heart disease, let's take your heart out. But anyway, so we checked her spine. These nerves down here go out to her digestive system, go out to reproductive organs, and started actually correct the cause. This is over about 6 months for her. And so you can see spine's doing way better. Her headaches were very rare. Her Crohn's disease went away, and she's off a lot of the medications that she is taking as well. So that's what it's about. Like, health doesn't come from the outside; it only comes from within. And it really starts with making sure that your body is working and functioning like it's supposed to, which is making sure that your nerve system is working really well. Okay. So many of you have heard us talking about, we got our food drive going on. So is this helpful information tonight for you guys? Okay, so there probably should be a lot of other people that need to hear this. And so one of the ways that we do that is, we're really big on helping out with Union Gospel Mission, but just giving people an opportunity. If you have friends, family that are mentioning that they have health problems, back issues, whatever the case is, I mean, even if they're not and they haven't had their spine checked, they probably should. Okay, and so for the rest of this week, through next Monday, we're giving them an opportunity. They can come in, bring in some canned goods. We'll check their spine out, see how their body's actually functioning, and if there's any issues there, and we can help them prevent problems or address issues that they have before they become a much bigger problem. Does that make sense? So let them know about that. We got some more flyers, I think, around here someplace. Right up there. So if you need some of those, hand them out to your friends, and that way we can help do some good in the community, help your friends out, and it's kind of a win for everybody. Cool? Anybody have any questions? No questions? All right, I stumped you guys tonight. All right, thanks for coming. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention on the back too is, so if you guys are interested in the resources, whenever we do the workshops, 15% off, 20% off 3 or more, and then on the back we put together some specific bundles too, so you actually save more beginning with some of the bundles. You get 25% off. So a good way if you're running low on stuff, stock up, saves you a little bit of cash in the process.